Man, ever since Baby on Baby Drop,
Man,
ever since Baby on Baby Drop,
Baby on
ever since
Baby Drop,
Baby
ever
on
since
motherfucking
Baby on
Baby
goddamn
Drop, ever
Baby Drop.
since
Man, you know
Baby
what I'm
on
saying,
Baby
the
Drop,
baby
man,
on the
ever
Baby
since
Drop, you
Baby
know,
on
play, it's the
Baby Drop.
baby on the
The
baby.
Baby has been making incredible waves in the rap scene as one of the most promising stars of the future. I mean, this dude has been everywhere, especially with his Grammy-nominated hit single "Shug," as well as his features with J. Cole, Camila Cabello, other pop stars as such. He's got a Nicki Minaj and Chance the Rapper on his last record, big names like that. This one even features Offset and Roddy Ricch, so he's really pushing himself to be one of the biggest names in hip hop, and he sounds confident in doing so, which is so important in hip hop to be confident in what you're doing and how you're presenting it. However, despite the baby having such charisma, such a good delivery, such an impressive flow on the mic, a lot of people have criticized him for only sticking to one style, having the same flow, the same kinds of beats, the same lyrical topics on his track, and the same delivery. And although it is an excellent delivery, it seems like people want a bit more variety from him as an artist. Which brings us to not Baby on Baby, but this time Blame It on Baby. Now, I was looking forward to this record when I heard the single Find My Way because although I don't particularly like the singing on it, I did like that the baby was using more acoustic based instrumentals. I like that he was talking a bit more personal. A lot of the lyrics talk about his upbringing and where he sees himself now in the hip hop game now that he's at a higher level than he was before. In the chorus, he's talking about how every single person in his life tells him he's their hero, but when it's up and they go down, they treat him like a villain, saying, I guess he feels like people are only supporting him because he is currently so popular, because he currently is this superstar future of the hip hop game as many people view him. He gets even more personal on this chorus by saying, he's just a guy with a broken heart trying to find his way back home. And it's very apparent that he's trying to be more vulnerable with the softer acoustic instrumental over these trap drums produced by, I believe his name is DJ KID, and he's all over this project. You could hear his producer tag of being like, wait a minute, who are you? As the Kazoo Kid sample, of course, I guess. And although I like that the baby was going into some new territories here, I was a bit worried because I found his singing to be kind of weak. I didn't like so much the way he carried the hook, despite me liking the lyrical vulnerability more from the baby, and even his flow on the verses. His delivery is a bit different than what we're used to. But I was just hoping he wouldn't sing all over his next record or try to make it some kind of crooner thing. And as much as I am a fan of this record overall, I will say unfortunately, he did end up singing a bunch of these records on some of the more underwhelming crooner type cuts. But let's first talk about how this album starts. The first two tracks, Can't Stop and Pick It Up, I wasn't a huge fan of these personally. There's nothing like particularly wrong with the tracks, but I just found that I've heard this from the baby before on Kirk. I've heard these kind of beats on songs like Shug, Bop, Vibes. It didn't really sound like he was doing anything too different. I mean, there is a nice flute sample or pan flute sample in Pick It Up with Quavo, but again, I feel like even just DaBaby's flow on this and delivery, I've heard so many times from him before. I think the first track I really liked on this record was probably Light Skin Shit featuring Jetson and Future. And what I like about this is it doesn't particularly sound like a Jetson beat. So it was impressive to see that producer go out of his typical style. And I really like the chorus where the baby says, my bitch like a model, word to a genie, she shaped like a bottle. Fucking IG, she too fine to follow. Powerball bitch, I just hit the lotto. Is definitely some of the more clever wordplay I think I've seen from the baby before, and I think the imagery of the woman being shaped like a bottle is just hilarious to compare that to a genie. And his verse and delivery here is a bit more of a different flow than usual. It's still kind of choppy on the verses, but the hook is a bit more spread out. It seems like the baby is trying something new with his delivery here, and I'm a fan of it personally. The future verse is okay. I think it could have been a lot worse, but I'm personally not a huge fan of Future aside from a few songs and mixtapes here and there. But honestly, it fit really well into the beat, and I like that, again, this is something instrumentally that we don't typically see the baby hop on, much like the song My Way. Now, while I did like the switch up in style in the last track, the one following, Sad Shit, really went in the wrong direction, to say the least. Now, this isn't your typical DaBaby song. He's kind of done with the whole tough guy, player exterior. He's trying to go a bit more emotional, trying to be a bit more sad on this one, but I find that the track is still just as shallow as some of the other cuts that DaBaby has put out before, just as pretentious lyrically. And his singing is atrocious on this thing. I mean, like, there's parts where it sounds squeaky as hell, and raspy. Even the notes that he's not trying to hit a falsetto just don't really match the mark they were going for. And it seems like in the beginning he even says like, yeah, this is some sad shit like for the real fans, but like it doesn't seem like he's the one that's sad in this. Like in the chorus he's saying, cause baby, I know my old bitch miss me, now I'm gone and my heart's empty, like, but it seems like later in the verses he's kind of a bit more confident in the aftermath of this relationship. He says like, fuck that, I'm back on my pimping, back fucking 4 or 5 women. If I really did you wrong, then tell me why the fuck I'm in my feelings. And it's just weird to think like he's talking about, he keeps going back and forth from like this girl missing him to like him like, oh, it's fine because I'm fucking all these women and I'm on my pimp shit again. Like, it seems like you're kind of saying that you're over this, but then you allude to you not being over this. It's just a really confusing track topically, and overall, it doesn't really seem that sad to me. And again, the singing, I just. I will say though, the track following that, not My Way, because we already talked about that one before, but I will say the track following that one, Rockstar with Roddy Ricch, is a highlight and one of my favorite tracks on this project. DaBaby's singing here and delivery is much better. I don't know why he couldn't have sang like this on Sad Shit or My Way. I feel like this one has a much better melody to it, and DaBaby actually hits the notes without reaching that scratchy upper register that sounds so atrocious and off-putting to the ear. The acoustic guitar melody, the arpeggiated, strummed chords throughout this sound very pleasant to the ear. It's very floaty, it's very bouncy, it's a nice banger track, but one with an emotional twist to it in the instrumental. I kind of do like the chorus where he says, brand new Lamborghini, fuck a cop car, with this pistol on my hip, like I'm a cop. Have you ever met a real homie rock star? This ain't no guitar, bitch, just a Glock. I kind of like that little analogy there of like instead of having a guitar, he has a Glock because he's a different kind of rock star, I suppose. It kind of alludes to how hip hop is the new rock and roll, as many people have been saying, since it's surpassed rock and roll as the most popular genre in the world. And although this track has plenty of the typical tough guy braggadocio from DaBaby, there are moments of lyrical vulnerability that we're seeing here as well. Like these lyrics where he says, PTSD, I'm always waking up in cold sweats like I got the flu. My daughter, a G, she saw me kill a homie in front of her before the age of 2, and I'll kill another person too, for I let another person do something to you. Long as you know that, don't let nobody tell you different. Daddy, I love you. I think that's like the child kind of saying it, but I do like how it seems like DaBaby is kind of talking a bit more about his family life and what he's willing to do for his family. I think that's a side of him we don't typically see so much beyond his child being on the album cover of Kirk. He didn't really seem like he talked about that too much on that record, so I like he's talking about it a bit more now. Roddy Ricch comes in a little bit scratchy on the vocals, but it definitely picks up. There's some nice lines in here. There's some clever flows and melodies. I really am a fan of Roddy Ricch's delivery, how he can have such a nice rap flow with such a melodic twist to it. I think he's one of the better auto crooners that we've seen in a few years. Now he definitely has a better singing voice than DaBaby, but I do like his verse here, and I think the two collaborate pretty well on this cut. And I can say a similar thing for the next cut, Jump, which has NBA Youngboy on the track, and I gotta say these two actually collaborate really well. I can't deny the chemistry. Even in the chorus, you hear them going back and forth in the verses as well. I think that the way they jump from flow to flow is very nice. Now, it's really nothing compared to R&P by YB and Cordae and Anderson .Paak, but I like how NBA Youngboy and DaBaby do it here. It sounds a bit like this is like the trap version of that kind of song. The beat is cool. It has a very bouncy bass throughout it. It's not too loud. It's a little bit muddy and buried in the mix, but I kind of like it that way because it's not exactly overpowering the voice of NBA YoungBoy or DaBaby. I think one of the pluses of this album is definitely DJ Kid's production on this is pretty creative throughout. Although this one does have the typical DaBaby braggadocio, but considering the album has a bit of variety, I don't really mind it here because it's not like we've heard this style or this lyrical perspective of DaBaby throughout the whole album. He's provided a bit of diversity, so I don't mind there being this braggadocious track here, especially considering it's a banger. And again, there's good chemistry between the two artists. There also are some quotables here, like I Kurt Angle that hoe, put her leg in the air, ankle lock, hold that bitch until she tap out. I thought that was a pretty funny reference to Kurt Angle. As a old school wrestling fan, I was a big fan of that one. Champion was an interesting cut to hear because DaBaby really sounds. He sounds like a brick wall on this, or like a gorilla. Like, honestly, the man sounds tough. He sounds confident. And, you know, DaBaby typically does sound like this, but it's brought to a new level, to new heights on Champion. Really is a motivational track. Really is a hype boy anthem, a hype beast anthem, I would say. And again, he's slightly singing on the chorus here. It has a bit of a melody to it, but he carries it well. Much better than on My Way or on Sad Shit. And this one may have the typical baby type braggadocio within it. However, considering the beat and the delivery is a bit different than what he's typically done previously on this album, I'm not really bothered by it because it's kind of in a different package of sorts. Champion really isn't too different from a lot of songs on here lyrically, but with the instrumental being different and the delivery being different, it does create a different vibe from what the rest of this album is presenting. Now, another kind of experiment from DaBaby that I didn't particularly like was on Drop. He sounds like pretty much any typical auto crooner. He desperately tries to hit a melody in his verses, but again, his voice sounds kind of scratchy. I don't particularly like the auto-tune or the way it's mixed. A Boogie's verse is really kind of forgettable. It seems like he phoned it in. This really overall was just a very forgettable track. And I am a big fan of London on the track and his producing, but this one just seemed really forgettable. We didn't really need it in this album whatsoever. It didn't bring new variety, and the new variety it did bring with DaBaby trying to auto-croon wasn't really an experiment I was fond of, being it didn't sound so good or was executed so well. Blame It On Baby is a song, the title song of this album, that I have very mixed feelings on because I love that the beat is so different. The crescendoing piano keys throughout it that keep looping and looping. The minimalist drums on this first beat are excellent. I love how DaBaby kind of tiptoes over the beat following those piano keys. It's a different flow than we've ever heard from him, so to have it at this point in the album is excellent, and I loved hearing him flow in this way. The second beat on this is very nice too. It has a video game Nintendo type of vibe. We have these synths kind of arpeggiating and crescendoing up and down and decrescendoing as well throughout the beat. DaBaby doing a completely different flow on this one now. It's a bit slower, it's a bit more spaced out as opposed to the piano that comes in once again. However, the only thing I don't like about this track is how quickly and suddenly and sporadically the beats change. I feel like there could have been a much better transition. It seems like it kind of just happened at random throughout the song, although I'm impressed with how quickly DaBaby can switch his flow up on a track, and this is a flow we haven't seen from him before, these two different ones. I just wish the transitions were a bit smoother. Nasty is by far my favorite DaBaby song, I think, ever. This track is... Where do I start? Okay, let's start with the beat. So it definitely has that kind of Houston Southern sound to it. I can see maybe Outkast or UGK hopping on this if they preferred trap as opposed to 90s boom bap. It definitely has elements of that for sure. And lyrically, this thing is just so sensual. I mean, even in the beginning, you have DaBaby saying, she know I'm nasty. She like it when I pull it out and I put it on her ass cheeks. On her ass cheeks, bro. Her ass cheeks. Yeah, I mean, and it just doesn't stop from there. He says, I get mouth and I sit on the couch and I make her sit on it, especially if she's flexible. There's this line here where he says, I take both legs and I put them behind her head like she a pretzel. It's crazy. He says he's trying to kill the pussy, call the ambulance, get a stretcher. Like the wordplay here is just, it's nasty. It really fits the title of it. It's very sexual, but it's not overly creepy. You know, it has a sensual, smooth vibe to it. Definitely something that I think someone can very much get into the groove for dancing or fucking, you know, whatever. Whatever you guys are trying to do to this track. The Ashante feature is very nice. Smoothly singing Baby, Baby, Baby over again on the track. The vocal riffing she does in between it is beautiful, very on point melodically. Megan Thee Stallion, as always, has a great flow, some nasty lyrics as we're used to from her. And I gotta say, listen, I've had a theory for months now, pretty much since Double XL freshman cover that DaBaby and Megan Thee Stallion were both on as of this past year. I've had theories for months that these two are fucking getting it on. And listen, there's a whole line in Megan Thee Stallion's verse where she says, "He know he made it. He fucking on Megan. It's driving his last hoe crazy. I like to talk shit when I fuck. I need a rough guy like DaBaby." Megan, do you mean like DaBaby or do you mean literally DaBaby? There's all kinds of lines like that in Megan Thee Stallion's verse talking about she likes her hair pulled. Um, she puts one leg on the headboard and leave the other leg on the mattress. Look down at him while he's smacking and get them headshots like an actress. It's just a lot of clever but nasty sexual words, but presented with some good, clever analogies, similes, or metaphors. I can talk about even more lines that go on in this verse, but there's really, it's the whole song. I mean, he even says like, "I'm doing my push-ups in that pussy. We getting our workout on it." It's sexy and but it's clever as well. And even again on this bridge here, Ashante even says DaBaby trying to have a threesome with Shanti and Megan. So you can no longer deny that DaBaby is fucking her. Okay, it's over. The proof is here. The proof is in the pudding. I really like the beat on Amazing Grace, which is the outro of this record, although this one was produced by Ghost Kid, not DJ Kid, but it has these weirdly haunting piano keys, kind of, or organ keys mixed more in the background of it, but it kind of gives the beat a old school vibe to it, and it has these steel drums throughout it as if it's like a reggae track, but with a nice trap flair to it. It's just a very clever instrumental, and it reflects DaBaby talking a bit more spiritual on this, like on the chorus when he says, "A homie barely read the scripture, but I'm spiritual. Seven-figure homie, thank you God, it's a miracle. Turn on the lights and you see roaches in our cereal. You can't touch me now, we ain't the same, I still ain't feeling you." I like the imagery of roaches in his cereal and the imagery of God and miracles and such. I think it's a nice change of pace topically on the album, although we have seen DaBaby talk about spiritual um, views and religion and God before, but not exactly in this way. It is a bit short though, and it does end kind of abruptly, which I wish it didn't for the album, but I still like it as an outro. Overall, I would say this is not the perfect album that I've heard from DaBaby. I still think he can do better, but I like that he's exploring new territories. I like that he's trying new things. Some of these experiments pay off, some of them don't, but I would say a majority of them sound pretty good. And a majority of this album, honestly, is a lot of bangers. I can see a lot of hits coming out from this. I could see DaBaby kind of growing from here to improve his vocal delivery, to improve different styles that he's trying out here. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and a lot of them, again, do pay off pretty well. So I'm going to give this album 3.5 out of 5 babies, because it's DaBaby, man. It's baby on baby. You saw in the intro, you know what it is. So that's the rating for this album. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll be reviewing some more hip hop projects pretty soon.